only a few minutes from my side to present some output. As you know, as Ling mentioned previously, we will have some output from the Mekong Research Project, especially working paper and 2 policy briefs, but also a collective book, including the scoping and systematic review we did, and some study cases in Southeast Asia, continental Southeast Asia. And in the only a few slides, I would like to introduce this publication. Okay, and we have some authors with us. We have maybe, let me check, Daniel, Dina, and Clara? No? Well. This collective book will be on inequalities and environmental changes in the Mekong River Basin. Will be published at AFD edition in Paris, in co-edition with IRD Marseille. It will be an electronic version, but also paper. We will print the book in Paris, and a few hundreds will be sent to the French Development Agency in Southeast Asia, in Phnom Penh, Hanoi, and Bangkok, and maybe Vientiane too, and maybe Rangoon. So, as you can understand now, our work is also a synergy of different institutions, and we include this dimension in this book. We will have 8 different chapters. You will read it on the screen. Our part, I mean, Ling, Etienne Espagne, Alexis Drogoul, and myself, we will have a publication on the scoping and systematic review. So it's IRD, AFD, and WANASEA synergy. We'll have also a paper, a chapter from Chiang Mai University and the Australian National University. Another one, the chapter 3, will be from our colleague from Canada, University of Ottawa, and also from Quebec University and Laval University. The chapter 5 will be what is quite interesting, because the author is a researcher, but he's an activist too. So we try to moderate him a little bit to have a nice publication. But it's very original publication because he takes data from the field, really. And from Myanmar, as you can imagine, it's not so easy to do that. The chapter 6 will be from our colleague from Chiang Mai University, is Daniel, who is with us, I suppose. And the last 2 chapters will be from Paris 1, Panthéon-Sorbonne, France, and Bordeaux University and Lausanne University. Okay, this is, I would like to just to show you the study cases we will develop in this collective book using this map. I think is more friendly to show it like this. We will have the first chapter here, the systematic review result. It's there's no arrow because we will consider all the area, the study area of our research, and will be until your right in the impact of land and water use changes. We will have one study case around Young Basin on social identities and unequal vulnerabilities. We will have one more in the utilization of sand pumping in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. The chapter 4 will be in Laos, in 2 different sites from our colleague from Canada, about mining exploitation. And on this slide, the study case in Myanmar, the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor impact on the land disposition in Tang Tea Farming Society. Another one in Thailand. This is the paper of Daniel about intensify maize production in this area, 3 sites. And the last one, but not the last one, the chapter 7, in the Mekong Delta, will develop some question around the rural-urban migration in response to environmental changes. And the last one, it will be a macro study case on Mekong region about inequalities and environmental changes. And that's it. And that's it. Just, you know, it was only a few minutes to explain a little bit more about this collective book. So we anticipate the publication maybe in March or April, max. Okay. We change now, we move now to a new session. My colleague, Benjamin Buckley from CREED, and myself, we built a presentation, but Benjamin recorded himself to introduce a new project based on what we did on the Mekong research project. We try to, so the name ETIS is Environmental Transition and Inequalities in Southeast Asia. This topic include, as the Mekong project, Vietnam, so 5 countries, the Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar countries. And also, we will keep our eyes on China during this 6 years project. You will see it's a very ambitious project. It's a 6 years project, including research, that means PhD candidate and master degrees, but also capacity building and communication, dissemination. And maybe we will try to, during this 6-year project, to develop a new, to design a new profile of how to make research. And we call it a PhD 4.0, what is quite original for research activity. But let's go to the video clip and let's learn and hear about Benjamin Buckley talk.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Buckley from CREED. I'm happy to be almost with you to conclude your day of work with the presentation of a project we've been working on for more than a year now. The project is called ETIS, for Environmental Transition and Inequalities in Southeast Asia. My presentation is organized as follows. I'll first give you some elements of background and context. Then I will explain why the project is important and present the proposed approach and the planned activities. Finally, and quite quickly, I will present the foreseen organizations and a quick presentation of the Gantt chart for the planning of the activities. This before telling you how you might want to participate to the next steps. So first of all, a few elements of background. This project is the fruit of more than 20 years of experience in different professional areas. Its foundation are constituted by about 10 years of research in human and social sciences, 10 years of academic research, of course, but in the framework of international scientific cooperation programs. You know, this kind of program where scientific activities are really embedded in strong collaborative frameworks where human relationships are key to success. And during these years, gradually capacity building became central in our activities, to the point that we got involved in this project 10 Dow Days, which has been implemented from 2009 to 2017, based on the organizations of university level summer school dedicated to human and social methodologies research. This is actually where Stefan and I met. He was responsible for this project in Dow Days, and I was at this time head of the capacity building department of IRD, Institute of Research for Development. And IRD was supporting the Dow Days. This project lasts almost 10 years, and when after in 2017, it became clear that it was time to scale up. So this is when we elaborated WANASEA, an Erasmus Plus project, Water and Natural Resources in Southeast Asia. This is WANASEA. More precisely in Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. WANASEA really complemented the Dow Days model with networking activities, targeted training sessions, and a very strong articulation with non-academic stakeholders. You can see here a picture of the participants of last year's Asian Water Platform, which happens annually. It gives you an idea of the scale of the project. It was in Phnom Penh, and actually it was when we started the elaboration of ETIS. We started ETIS with a problem tree workshop that happened in Phnom Penh this year, and this is how we started to design the project ETIS. So here we are in the middle of WANASEA, thinking about the future. And this is, in fact, the first component explaining the context of ETIS. Because as a matter of fact, it happens that we have eyes and ears also, and we live on the planet, the only one we know, where we can live, so Earth. And this is a planet where pollution, destruction of ecosystems and species, loss of biodiversity, and of course the global warming and related hazards. It's a planet where we can see increasing inequalities within and between countries. All that happening around us, things that now are measurable in a lifetime, in our lifetime. We can measure it, experimenting just the few years of life we have had. All this, while scientific truth is being challenged, sometimes by the most powerful people. I'm thinking of the soon former president of a big power in the world, and also by a mass of people. More and more people believe that Earth is flat. There is even a flat Earth society that has been created, joining 15,000 people. And all these elements, looked at in the mirror of our professional lives. I exposed these elements have raised many questions, and maybe the main one would be, how is it that with all the scientific knowledge we can access to nowadays, how is it that the situation of our societies in relation to nature and environment, in relation to such unfair socioeconomic situations among us, how is it that the situation reached such a critical point? Have scientific communities done something wrong or missed something? And most of all, could scientific communities bring something to contribute to the solutions? So basically, this is the context of ETIS. A context where it is urgent to reposition science here in the center of the game and improve the way science is considered. The proposal is to produce knowledge differently. So, of course, this proposal is quite ambitious and calls for large-scale initiative. And this is precisely what ETIS is about, a large-scale initiative. We will work at regional level in these 5 countries, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, countries that share economic, geopolitical, and geographical characteristics. We observe a common trajectory of economic growth, a common geopolitical constraints and opportunities among these 5 countries, but also relating to their neighbor, China in the first place. And of course, sharing similar ecosystems and biotype characteristics that contribute to some kind of cultural and social unity among their diversity. In sum, this context of interdependencies make really a strong case in favor of a regional approach to promote a serious long-term development strategy being consistent with both social and environmental sustainability. Okay, so in this context, what is the rationale of our project? Here's the joke. Environmental transition seems to be a bit like sex for teenagers. Everybody agrees that it should happen, but they don't really know how to make it happen. It's not from me, it's has been said about big data, but it's quite the same thing, environmental transition. There's a perfect consensus, a broad consensus about action, the need for action, but we don't have solutions to cope with so many interrelated issues. Global warming, climate change, pollution of ecosystems, loss of biodiversity. Moreover, increasing inequalities all over the world, but particularly in Southeast Asia, actually, we've looked at the figures. Increasing inequalities make it hard to formulate realistic and acceptable socioeconomic transformations that would be called by environmental transition. So we should add other issues to be taken into account, such as, of course, the global economy, the integration of these countries in the global economy, what we call progress. What does progress mean, actually? We can talk about well-being, some talk about happiness. These are questions that should be integrated in what an environmental transition should be. Of course, all these issues altogether appear so relevant and their complexity so much exacerbated by the actual situation of the pandemic. So the project ETIS that we've been thinking about for a while really makes sense in the actual situations. And I would say it even become an emergency to do something. So for us, facing all these complex and interrelated issues, our conviction is that knowledge must be produced in order to inform profound transformations of socioeconomic systems, addressing the complex understanding of how inequalities and ecosystems interact with each other. This is basically the rationale of the project. So what is the approach and what are the activities? ETIS is a 6-year project based on a 4 wings approach. 4 wings because it looks a little bit like a butterfly. But yeah, a butterfly. The first wing is about knowledge production. It is about undertaking an ambitious and extensive production of scientific scientific knowledge on the different dimensions of the inequality environmental transition nexus, topic that you probably have been talking about all day long. So this is what it is about, the production of scientific knowledge. We fall into the field of sustainability science, also called science of interactions, definitely interdisciplinary. The idea of this projection is to understand the relationships of ecological and social phenomena. And it is important to say that the main research questions will be defined within the ETIS scientific unit based on the results of the project Inequalities and Environmental Changes Nexus in the Mekong River Basin. So what you've been talking about all day long will be one of the key elements that the scientific unit, I will present later, the scientific unit, will work on to define the main research questions. In terms of activities, there will be this, the first step will be the establishment of a high-level international scientific committee, which will be responsible for the definition of these research questions, also the definitions of the PhD subjects, and which will be also responsible to accompany the project all 6 years, and also to write a white paper, which will be the conclusion of our project. We will have the international recruitment of 30 PhD candidates coming from the 5 targeted countries, but also from Europe and Canada. We imagine that maybe 1/3 will be from Europe and Canada and 2/3 from Southeast Asia, but it's entirely theoretical so far. And also 19 master's degree candidates who will after that start PhDs once the machine is launched. And at the end of the project, we plan to launch a demand-driven call in order to strengthen the laboratories which will host the PhDs and the master's degrees. The second wing is connection to society and networking. It is about linking researchers and their institutions to other stakeholders. This is definitely innovation for us, is to look for direct integrations of findings into concrete actions, collective practices, and public policies. The idea is to undertake PhDs integrated to an ambitious framework of activities. This is what we have called the PhD 4.0 in reference to the concept of Industry 4.0, which is really a connected way of producing goods for the industry and knowledge for us. So you can look in detail at these ideas in the concept note you probably have under your eyes. In terms of activities, it is about establishment of a communication team dedicated to engagement and integration of non-academic participants in research activities. We have to be realistic about our limitations. So we need to have professionals to accompany us in these communication issues. This is not something we have learned in our universities. This is about writing the white paper I was mentioning earlier, a white paper on how to implement the environmental transition in a context of socioeconomic inequalities, and the writing of annual learning papers. The third wing is communication and dissemination. The idea is to go one step further once we have connected research to society and through networking. The idea is to go one step further and make it possible for other people beyond academic circles alone to use the knowledge produced. Okay. I'm a bit lost in my presentation and I'm recording here, so it's awful because I know I can't look at you to see if you understand what I'm saying. I'm just looking at the wall in front of me, so it's really not easy. Okay, so yes, idea to make sure the use of knowledge is possible. We will work on the format and visualizations that scientific knowledge takes, and do much more than writing scientific papers or do academic presentations in colloquium or conferences. The objective is that scientific progress should be considered as its true value by decision makers. This is really the point. So activities are planned as follow: 2 regional fora for academic and non-academic actors every year. Two of them during the project, resulting in collective position papers. These are moments of meeting between the academy and non-academic actors. It seems easy to say, but it's very hard to organize and to succeed in that. Creation of creation of communication media, creation of illustrations, infographics, photos and videos, website, SEO, search engine optimization, also management of community, management of press relations. So this is what we foresee for communication and dissemination. And the 4th wing is about capacity building and intense capacity building effort. To ensure leverage effect, because the idea is that it's not a one shot, even if it would be a 6 years one shot, so maybe 6 shots, but anyway, it must be sustainable, as we say. Okay, so we need a strong capacity building to start a virtuous cycle leading to this science-based monitoring of the environmental transition. So the idea behind this capacity building efforts is that skills needed to do good research go far beyond scientific skills only. Communication, legal issues, how to write proposals, how to manage resources, human and financial resources. All these peripheral skills are often missing in higher education institutions in Southeast Asia, but not only in Southeast Asia, I can tell you. So this is what capacity building approach is about. And concretely, it will be webinars, training sessions for PhD and master's degree candidates, but also for research managers and people who really do the job. And we will also do that through 3 regional summer schools organized in a closed environment to ensure total immersion of participants and also foster intercultural exchanges and networking. All right, so as a whole, why ETIS and why should higher education institutions get involved? So if you're not convinced that the project is interesting and groundbreaking, this is a few elements that I want to highlight. We think that ETIS is the opportunity for higher education institutions to position themselves as really actors of change and really enabling science to influence collective decisions. It is also the opportunity to integrate an international network of institutions committed to a responsible and pragmatic approach to research. This is the idea of connected science. It also implies profound changes in the way research is carried out and in the use of scientific results by economic and social actors. And another important point is that this connected science approach and the idea of the pilot idea of PhD 4.0, these are things that can be replicated in other contexts. It is also one of the added value of the project. And at a whole, the objective is to identify solutions to the most urgent socio-environmental problem faced by humanity. It sounds a little bit dramatic saying that, but this is really what it is about. So very quickly, this is the organizations we imagine. You can see the butterfly down at the bottom of the screen. The rest of it is not particularly original. You know, there is a management unique steering committee, like in any project. I have to add, I need to add that monitoring and evaluation system will be set up in order to really accompany the project and be sure that we reach our objectives. This is something we are used to. But I want to stress out your attention on the scientific unit, which is probably the innovative side of this organization. The scientific unit, which is a pluridisciplinary group, about 15 high-level scientists, equally from Europe and Asia, and maybe Canada, because we might work with Canadian institutions. This scientific unit will really be involved. It won't be here as a scientific justification. I mean, we are definitely in the middle of a scientific and research project here. There is a lot of production of knowledge, and the scientific unit will not only work on the core science of the project, but also will be integrated in the management unit so that they will be involved in any decisions, and also will be responsible for the writing of the roadmap for the realizations of environmental transition in the context of inequalities, the white paper, this roadmap. And finally, the planning. Well, it's a little bit ridiculous to show planning like that from now for the 6 years coming on, but just to show you that we have more or less planned how it would be organized. Of course, the details have to be defined, and this is precisely what will we do this year. These are the next steps. We will start setting up a support committee with a letter of commitments in principle, expression of interest of stakeholders, academic and non-academic, in Asia, Europe, and Canada. The second step, which might be a very big step, but still, is to constitute a pool of donors committed to support the project. And finally, we will organize a formulation workshop, joining involved partners, which something, if the situation allows us to do it, it will happen in the second semester of the coming year. Actually, for these next steps, we are currently joining 4 institutions to fund, to give us seed money to move on these next steps. So this is already a very, 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 very big satisfaction to know that some serious institutions, Stefan might talk to you about, are involved and almost agree. We are still waiting for some answers, but most of them already got involved, agreed to follow us in these next steps. So finally, I really thank you for your attention, and hopefully, if I can, I will join you on the platform. I think it's Zoom, to participate to the discussion if the planes and the travel allow me to do so. So bye for now, and I hope to hear from you very soon. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you that of course you can see our email addresses, and if you're hungry to contribute and participate to the project, we will be glad to hear from you and to answer you, most of all. That's the point. Okay, bye for now, and talk to you soon, hopefully.
So Benjamin, you are with us now, right?
I am with us, with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm entirely with you because I just get out of the plane, but I'm part of me is with you.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the presentation of Benjamin and I. Just to precise that, as Benjamin mentioned, some organizations are already or almost on board. Already is the Global Development Network based in New Delhi, and also IHEID from Genova. And we have Jean-Christophe, Christophe Gironde, sorry, with us. And his institute is ready to participate also to the project. And we are waiting from IRD support, but we have 4 scientific departments from IRD who are already okay to implement this first phase through seed money for 1 year, next year. And we hope that the French Development Agency will follow. And I think through Etienne Espagne, we will meet a success on that. So regarding ETIS and what you just hear, maybe you have some comment or question. I just want to mention that I sent to all of you the concept note, the ETIS concept note already. I add that especially for Mr. Singh, who just arrived from Samanet. Thank you for coming. He just arrived and missed the first minute of the video clip. So, but you can come back to the concept note and to Benjamin and I for more additional information. So from Zoom meeting and from the room here, the audience, if you have any question or comment about this ambitious regional project, we are ready to answer.
Maybe I would have one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Etienne.
Okay, so thanks for the very nice presentation, Benjamin and Stéphane. Of course, it's a very exciting and ambitious project. I have maybe some questions on the concept of a PhD 4.0. Because I understand the idea, which is great behind that, is to have, let's say, kind of political dialogue at the same time as you develop your own research, so that you ensure that it is applied research and really applied research in a sense. But in more concrete terms, how do you intend to implement that? With which kind of institutional counterparties or stakeholders, and how will it happen in very concrete terms? For, let's say, you have one PhD in Cambodia and he's doing PhD 4.0 there. How do you ensure that there is this public policy dialogue happening?
Stéphane, can I try to start an answer? Yeah. Concretely, you know, usually now on PhDs work with PhD committees, comité d'accompagnement. So usually we set up a group of people accompanying the work of the PhD candidates beyond the advisor, scientific advisor. So first of all, the subject of the PhDs in ETIS will be defined by the scientific unit. So there will be a first step where we can try to involve other stakeholders.
It's really why we will define the subjects. And the idea is really involve other stakeholders, direct people or institutions or groups. I don't know, it will depend of the subject. But in the definition of the methodology, in the definition of what we expect from this research, so that the work in itself, the scientific work is really embedded in this environment, institutional environment, so that there is a good chance that some institutions, other stakeholders will be interested in the results and will expect the results to resolve some of their problems, I suppose. So since the beginning, and after that, we will have a team of people dedicated to communication and to create connections. As I don't remember if I said it, but we must be conscious of our limits. We are not professionals of communications and networking. Well, I'm not. And this is not something we learn in university, how to communicate well, most of all with the tools that are nowadays so quick and short term and in a way efficient, but kind of dangerous too, to my opinion. So there will be a team of people hired for that, to support the PhD candidates, to formulate his propositions, his work, to help him work differently. This concept 4.0 is really, I mean, it's really a personal, I mean, this is something we just thought about with the analogy of industry 4.0, which is industry connected to people. So it still has to be thought more deeply, but maybe simply experimenting it, we will you know, find the really specificities of what might become a really groundbreaking way of doing research for a PhD. I don't know. I hope.
Okay, thank you. I could continue ask more questions on that, but I don't want to impose my.
Well, Etienne, I will build on your question actually.
Okay,
because I think it's these 30 PhDs seem to be a real central piece of the project, and they are actually. Yeah. And the thing is, what you describe for the moment as a PhD 4.0 is, as you say, Benjamin, is a little bit fuzzy because it's not completely formalized. And it seems to relate a lot to how we do PhDs in France. For example, this idea of doctoral committee does not exist in every country. Uh-huh. And one of the main points is that these candidates will come probably from the 5 countries which are targeted by the project. In each country, you have different rules for PhD candidates. So either you try to define a kind of a new doctoral school by yourself, a kind of not terrestrial, but extraterritorial doctoral school, or maybe you try to involve from the beginning, and I think it will be the best solution, 1 or 2 doctoral schools in France ready to play the game, ready to follow in this adventure, and ready to register 30 candidates, probably with a double registration, so in their country and in France, with your own, with a set of rules, and this is something in which IRD can help you, because we already have the PDI program. So PDI, it's a program which has been built with Sorbonne University. And so far we have had 90, I think it's something like 90 candidates in 6 years, with very specific rules. So the rules are defined. It's a kind of agreement passed between IRD and Sorbonne University to enable, for example, the students to come 1 month in France, get all their credits in 1 month, spend all this time together, etc., etc. And I guess in your case, in the case of your project, it would be probably the best strategy to really, from the beginning, involve a doctoral school ready to register all the students, so that you can at least define some rules. Otherwise, you will have to deal with I don't know how many doctoral schools in how many universities in 5 different countries, and probably it's impossible. From what I know, actually, it's very complicated.
Yes, it's definitely the challenge is feasibility and whoa, what's happening here? Woohoo! Sorry, I have the screen moving. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, I understand now. In the next steps, we will have to work on that, to think about it first, and then to confront with other people, other points of view, and see what is possible, what is not possible. But it's true, and I thank you for your comment, because it is not necessarily something we had thought about, but it sounds crazy right now in working with 30 different PhD schools, so a doctoral school. So that would be fantastic if we can have a limited numbers of rules of way of doing it, and if we can have one having agreements with, I don't know, 15 or 20 universities, that would be great. Yeah, this is something we would definitely discuss during the workshop. It is something that we will have universities, we will have institutions, hopefully companies also, and we will discuss all the concrete modalities of implementation of this project. And 3 days won't be too much, because we have to find the easiest way of implementing all these activities, but also keep to the objectives. And sometimes I can foresee that it will be complicated, but together we are stronger, so it will be done.
Oh, just to add one point in link with just you said, Benjamin, is why we're asking for seed money budget. Just to identify academic and non-academic potential partner, to know exactly what people want to do regarding this project. And after, to put the main actors in the same place during 2, 3, 4 days at the formulation workshop, as mentioning by Benjamin. But the people who will attend this workshop, Benjamin and I, and maybe some others, we already have the information in mind, and they will follow us. And when the people will sit around the table, they will already know what they can put in the ETIS project. And you know, we will involve all the different stakeholders at the beginning of the strategy, and this is the originality of the project.
Yeah, we have a time dedicated to identify and to convince partners. So people joining us during the formulation workshop will be people that are already, to a certain extent, committed to support the project, or at least to participate.
For example, having the more the most political partners on board might be difficult especially maybe in Southeast Asia. For example, in Vietnam, you would have institutes from depending on the ministries. They are experts. Some of them have PhDs already, and some might be interested in having PhDs. So these kind of institutes, which are not really universities, with more independence and autonomy? Are there targets for this this kind of PhD 4.0, or not really? Because it's here that the public policy dialogue might really happen.
Well, it's a bit early to say it, but I just thinking with you about it. Yes, they would be targeted. At least a dialogue will be looked for. We will try to dialogue with these kind of institutions. So yes, we will have to find a good balance for this formulation workshop, because there is also here a question of feasibility. You cannot have 200 institutions to formulate a program, otherwise it just doesn't work. So there is we will have to find maybe stakeholders that are representing others and how are legitimate to express some kind of sensibilities or interests. There is still a lot of work to be done, and this is exactly what we will do before organizing it with this with the resources we are getting now with Stéphane.
I think that there's a question from Jean-Christophe Viepart.
Yeah. This discussion is very interesting. I'd like to provide some. It's not really a question; it's more a comment. I worked for 3 or 4 years with a project called the Mekong Region Land Governance Project, based here in the Mekong region, and the project was really trying to influence policies and practices that are more inclusive of smallholder farmers. And there is a lot of discussion here in the region about land grabbing, large-scale land acquisition. So we were really trying to basically discuss and dialogue with policymakers on how the policies and the practices, the implementation of the policies are more inclusive. And so it's not really rocket science, but I learned three things that maybe you would be interesting for this discussion we're having now. The first thing is that if you really want to maximize the chance or the linkages between the research, the knowledge production, and the use of the research by the policymakers, you really need to have the policymakers on board in defining the research questions right from the beginning. And of course, expecting that a workshop, when you invite the policymakers, will make them aware, sensitive, and ready to change policies. This is a dream that will never come true. This is one thing. Two is the question of time. Very often the policymakers, they have a very different time window and time frame than the researcher. We are here talking about PhD, 4 or 5 years work. The policymakers, very often they have very specific questions they need to answer in a very, very short time. So I think it's very important that you also try to, identify mechanisms to be responsive to this very short-term window. And the third point is that knowledge, well, I'm talking more here in Cambodia, but knowledge is very easily lost within institutions, particularly within ministry. So it's very important also to ensure continuity, to involve policymakers in this process, making sure that this person has some legitimacy within his ministry to talk and to be heard and to be, and also make sure that this person basically follow the process from beginning to end. Otherwise, if you just get lost in the middle of the process, so all the inputs and the efforts that you have put to really try to have him influence his own policy will be lost. So basically, these 3 points I think are important to consider.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Christophe. I think I understand your point, and just let me clarify something. The formulation workshop is really not the moment where the subject will be defined. Mm-hmm. It's the moment where we will just write, or at least define, the full proposal. detailing, because we have written a concept note, which is which was quite an effort, to be honest, but which is nothing compared to what needs to be thought and specified in a complete proposal for such a big project. So the formulation workshop needs to involve policymakers, but in our idea, the moment where the subjects are defined is a moment that will happen at the beginning of the project once it is funded, with involving other stakeholders, including policymakers, maybe NGOs, maybe groups of people, community-based in some cases, depending of the overall scientific approach that will be defined by the scientific unit. So this is a distinction, an important distinction. About the time, the agenda of policymakers obviously is very different than the research agenda, and I think it is why we need, and it is planned actually right now to produce different things, and not only the PhD. And this is maybe one of the extra effort that must be made by the PhD candidates, is that they will have to work to produce maybe policy notes, or the format still needs to be worked on, but we will have professionals for that. So this is really obvious that we won't have one meeting at the beginning of the PhD to define the subject, and then 4 or 5 years later, oh, this is the result, good luck. No, that's not the plan. And about your third point, this is also why we need to work on the right way of presenting knowledge produced, in order so that it's not lost. But about you're right, the people can. The trouble is that very often people change in public institutions, and in some cases, this is something you have to deal with. But if every 2-3 years, depending on politician issues, or so we have to find a way to work with several people. I don't know. I don't have the magic wand on that, but it's an issue that must be taken into account for sure. Christophe?
No, I just wanted to follow up on what Jean-Christophe said and add on that. I think it's really key to have the policymakers and practitioners really on the forefront, because it will typically enable us to knock at doors such as the Swiss Embassy in Bangkok, for instance. I would not feel comfortable to turn to them and say, look, we have this research project. This I'm comfortable, and I can go to the Swiss Foundation for Scientific Research. Well, that's fine. They have the classic budget lines and projects for that. But if for the project, the big challenge is beyond good or 4.0 research, academic research, is really to engage policymakers. We will be much stronger to get resources, and also the support, because typically we know, well, I think most of us have experienced those situations where we try to gather policymakers, but we as researchers, whether you come from the graduate institute or whatever prestigious scientific institution, if it's the embassy in Bangkok who organize an event, well, they knock at doors, and they have venues to gather policymakers that we cannot have, even with a rank A publication special issue on environment and inequality. So I think it's really, really crucial.
Of course, policymakers, and I would add, if we really want to break the wall, it's the big companies as well. If we have both, it will be very. Civil societies and NGOs are easier to because they're more used to dialogue with researchers, actually.
No, but I fully agree, and we already have.
I know this kind of organizations better, so it looks easier from my point of view.
And
But,
I fully agree, Benjamin. We already had this talk a few weeks ago, and again, typically, if you go to the Swiss embassy, then you reach the SECO, which is the Secrétariat du Commerce. That's the Trade Secretariat of Switzerland, and that's the way to try to bring in Swiss companies, for instance. Well,
okay.
Personally, or even the Graduate Institute would hardly get to embark Swiss companies, but the embassy and the SECO can. Well,
okay.
Well, I'm not sure they will, but they have far better chance than we.
All right.
Maybe one point on the stakeholders, gathering all the stakeholders. If you want to prioritize public policy dialogue, you may have conflicting views between different types of stakeholders, and you have to manage that as well. So the institutes, depending on ministry, will not have the same opinion or scientific program, let's say, than NGOs.
Yeah.
So this is also a key issue, I think. If you want to bring in.
You're right. You're right. In our ideal world, I would say that this disagreement would raise questions that could be the beginning of research questions, you know. So it will ask, for sure, some kind of diplomacy and diplomatic skills, but it is important. I mean, nobody can deny that we are facing a situation that must be really resolved, and sometimes, you know, when you have a common enemy, that would be climate change, let's say, it makes things easier so that people can agree on working together. We want to try. Oh, Thomas, hello.
Yes, hello. Maybe I can add something because now, you know, I belong to the French embassy. So I have another point of view a little bit. Previously, I would have talked with my research point of view. Now it will be from an attaché point of view. So definitely it is important to have this kind of meeting with political guy, because we know in the French embassies, in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, we have scholarships, what we call BGF, Bourse du gouvernement français. And for PhD, for example, it's sometimes easy for us to get some kind of co-funding scholarships. For example, we have that in Cambodia with the Ministry of Education. We have co-funding PhD theses. We provide half of the scholarships, and the ministry another half. It's only for PhD in STEM. Science, technology, mathematics, and so on. So I think it's the same for your PhD. I mean, if you get this dialogue with a political guy from the ministry, so it's possible to manage from the French embassy to discuss with them after, and why not to define a kind of co-funding strategies for scholarships or PhD, so it will be easiest for you to get this money. That's it. Good luck.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Christophe?
Thank you, Thomas, that you bring to my mind the PhD issue. I'm not sure it's been discussed already, but for instance, at the Graduate Institute, more and more PhD students do articles PhD. So, and there's a big advantage in the perspective of such a project is that you don't have to wait for 5 years. Let's make it clear, it's a 5 years period of time. You don't have to wait for 5 years to have a big piece of several hundred pages, and because the first, second article can come earlier, they can be more specific, really tailored, and more and better tailored to the project. And I think that's something to be considered. I don't know in the French university how it's developing or not, but well, of course, you know, here at the Graduate Institute, in the Department of Economics, it has become very common, but also in anthropology, it's on the rise. And also I think that for the PhD students, there's much more satisfaction with this, because they see more rapidly the results, the outcome or impact in the case of such a project.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure it's most of all in social and human sciences. It can be a really big frustration for young researchers to have the feeling that they are working just to feed other researchers and having absolutely no impact. Specifically when you work on social issues or inequalities, of course, but also degradation and destruction of the environment and things like that. If you have the feeling that your work will only serve for other researchers to produce papers that will serve you in the near future to write other papers, I mean, you're in a loop that is rather frustrating when you live in this world. So that's precisely the point, to give another scale of academic research. The challenge for me is most of all succeeding in that while keeping the good quality of the research, scientifically speaking, because we don't have to forget that we have to have both. It must not be only a very good research and excellence and meet the requirement of excellence, as we would say. It must be this is the minimum, but also maximize the probability of impact, of effect of through the connections. This is the connected side of it.
So if there's no more comment or question, we can maybe close this session and the meeting and in the same time. I would like again to thank the Commission, European Commission, the French Development Agency, IRD, and talking about people, a big thanks to my colleague Lynn, who make a great job during 1 year and a half, and it's not finished. In 2 months it will be finished, believe me. So thanks again for this afternoon. We share all together, and see you next year, at the beginning of next year, for a new project, and I hope it will be this ETIS project. Okay, thanks to everybody, and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Au revoir, Stéphane.
Ciao.